So welcome to a brand new NBA 2K16 My GM team selection. So basically, I've had my Washington Wizards MyGM mode 1. I've still got a couple years left to do on it, but I'm just looking forward to the future and seeing what my next MyGM team I will be controlling. So as always, I have the team bracket. I've got all the teams in this bracket. It's automatic seeds. I auto-generated them. So it looks like Memphis, LA, and OKC have buys, or Lakers have buys. And so basically, I'm going to go in a spinner, spin it, and look, the top wins. So the top team in the bracket, say, if top team wins, Brooklyn wins, or Indiana wins, or Atlanta wins, and they move on to the next round. So let's get this thing started. Start the tournament. Okay, so our first matchup in the first round is the Brooklyn Nets versus the Toronto Raptors. Let's check this. I'll reset that. Looks like the Brooklyn Nets are moving on to the next round to face the Memphis Grizzlies. So Brooklyn Nets. There we go. Second matchup, Indiana Pacers versus the Boston Celtics. So Boston has a big 3 on my Wizards one right now. They're insanely good. And it looks like Boston's moving on to the next round. Hopefully we can make a big 3 with Boston if we win. But anyway, next matchup is the Atlanta Hawks versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Looks like the Hawks are moving on to the next round to face the Boston Celtics. Our next matchup is the 76ers versus the Mavericks. And it looks like the 76ers are moving on to the next round. 76ers. There we go. Our next matchup is the Chicago Bulls versus the LA Clippers. It looks like the Bulls are moving on to the next round to face the 76ers. Chicago. Here we go. Next matchup is Houston Rockets versus the Detroit Pistons. Looks like the Rockets are moving on to the next round. Next matchup is the Miami Heat versus the Denver Nuggets. Tops win a lot. Oh, the bottom wins. So it looks like the Denver Nuggets are moving on to the next round to face the Houston Rockets. Bottom team finally wins. Our next matchup is the Orlando Magic versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Looks like the Magic are moving on to the next round to face the LA Lakers. Oh crap. There we go. Our next matchup is the Golden State Warriors versus the Portland Trail Blazers. Defending NBA champs. Will they win? And it looks like they win. So the Golden State Warriors are moving on to the next round. Next matchup is the Spurs versus the Cavs. Finals matchup. Wait, no, never mind. Looks like the Cavs are moving on to the next round to face the Golden State Warriors. Finals matchup there. Next matchup is the Utah Jazz versus the Phoenix Suns. Looks like the Jazz are moving on to the next round to face the OKC Thunder. Jazz. There we go. Our next matchup is the Charlotte Hornets versus the Sacramento Kings. Looks like the Kings are moving on to the next round. Or should I say the Queens. Last matchup in the first round is the New Orleans Pelicans versus the New York Knicks. Carmelo Anthony versus Anthony Davis. Looks like that Carmelo's winning this one, and the Knicks are moving on to the next round. So that is the end of our first round matchups. Right now in our second round, we got Memphis and the Brooklyn Nets, Celtics and Hawks, 76ers Bulls, Rockets Nuggets, Lakers Magic, Warriors Cavs, Thunder Jazz, and the Kings and the Knicks. Let's start this off again. So first matchup in the second round is the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Brooklyn Nets. Looks like the Grizzlies are moving on to the next round. Our next matchup is the Boston Celtics versus the Atlanta Hawks. Looks like the Hawks are moving on to the next round. And Hawks Hawks. There you go. Our next matchup is the 76ers versus the Chicago Bulls. Looks like the 76ers are moving on to the next round. Our next matchup is the Houston Rockets versus the Denver Nuggets. Looks like the Rockets are moving on to the next round to face the 76ers. Rockets. And our next matchup is the LA Lakers versus the Orlando Magic. Looks like the Magic are moving on to the next round. Our next matchup is the Golden State Warriors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Finals matchup. Looks like the Cavs are winning this one as they move on to the next round to face the Orlando Magic. LeBron James. Next matchup is the OKC Thunder versus the Utah Jazz. Looks like the Jazz are moving on to the next round. No Kevin Durant in this house. And our last matchup of the second round is the Sacramento Kings versus the New York Knicks. Looks like the Kings are moving on to the next round to face the Utah Jazz. So now our semis are done. Wait, no, our second round is done. And now we're moving on to the semifinals. Then we'll go to wait, no. Okay, I consider this to be semis anyway, but third round matchups are now the Memphis Grizzlies and the Atlanta Hawks, 76ers Rockets, Orlando Magic Cavs, and the Utah Jazz and the Sacramento Kings. Let's get this started off. So our first matchup of the third round is the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Atlanta Hawks. Looks like the Hawks are moving on to the semifinals. Our next matchup is the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Houston Rockets. Looks like the Rockets are moving on to the semifinals to face the Atlanta Hawks. Our next matchup is the Orlando Magic versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. Looks like the Cavs are moving on to the semifinals. And our last matchup of the third round is the Utah Jazz versus the Sacramento Kings, who will go on to face the Cleveland Cavaliers. Looks like the Kings are moving on to the semifinals to face the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now we only got 4 teams remaining: the Atlanta Hawks, the Houston Rockets, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Sacramento Kings. So our first matchup is Atlanta versus Houston. And it looks like James Harden and the Houston Rockets are moving on to the finals. And our last matchup of the semifinals is the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Sacramento Kings. DeMarcus Cousins versus LeBron James. And it looks like the Cleveland Cavaliers are going on to the finals to face the Houston Rockets. So now my finals teams have 2 really good players in James Harden and LeBron James. But let's determine the winner. So Houston versus Cleveland. Final spin here. And it looks like the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be my second NBA 2K16 MyGM team after the Washington Wizards. So I still have a few more years left in the Wizards, but after I've done it, we're moving on to Cleveland, baby. And so make sure to like, subscribe for more Washington Wizards MyGM mode and the future up and coming Cleveland Cavaliers GM. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.